Fuck, I'm fucking it up, damn it. Whatever, it doesn't matter. Anyway, hello! Internet, hi!
That was as good an effort as the movie.
Oof. Just going right into it, okay.
Yeah, why not?
Hello?
I went to the house.
Hello? Police department.
Happy January, happy first movie of January. We just saw The Grudge.
2020. Jesus, it feels weird to say that.
There we go, that's better. The Grudge is directed by Nicolas Pesce, the director of The Eyes of My Mother and Piercing, two wonderful films that I loved, and he loved one of because he didn't see Piercing. It stars Lin Shaye and Andrea Riseborough and Damien Bashir and John Cho, and it tells the story of
The Grudge.
The Grudge, house in America, haunted by a curse, because people died in a violent fashion, and now anyone who sets foot in the house dies. This is like the third remake of The Grudge, or the second American remake of The Grudge, and it is, it didn't garner much hope on that merit alone, because everyone's like, why are we getting another movie after the third one happened and it was terrible, and we also just got a reboot less than a decade ago. Actually, it was over a decade ago now, holy fuck. I had high hopes for this movie. It was on my most anticipated movies of the year list. The trailers genuinely freaked me out. They were actually really well done trailers, especially the second one that came out.
The trailers are better than the movie.
Yeah, the reviews started pouring in, and it's at 19% on Rotten Tomatoes, and I was like, I don't trust Rotten Tomatoes, and I was feeling a little hesitant going in because a lot of bad reviews. I've seen it now. It is not as terrible as I expected.
Yeah, no, I mean, Rotten Tomatoes, again, you gotta take everything they do with a grain of salt, but 19% even for Rotten Tomatoes is low. Worse than this movie deserves.
It's not as low as Cats, though.
Yeah, but Cats deserves it.
Sure does. I saw it.
But it just... The Grudge 2020 was just... by the numbers, aggressively okay. It really didn't do anything new or different or anything really that warranted a reboot, remake, whatever the hell this is.
They wanted to reinvigorate this franchise for a new generation of fans, and for people who are getting introduced to the franchise through this movie, maybe it'll do that. I don't know.
I doubt it.
I am a big fan of the franchise, and I am indeed disappointed.
It was good for January. If this came out in
that's true. It was better
June?
than Insidious Chapter 4. Both also starring Lin Shaye. What did you like about this movie?
The score was excellent. That's something I do have to give it.
Yes. Score was the best part of the movie.
Yeah.
The Newton brothers, who do all of Mike Flanagan's stuff, really just brought it home here. I loved everything about the music in this film. Really, really sold a lot of the scenes, especially the climax. Excellent work.
Some of the effects were pretty good too, especially...
The gore was nice.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't necessarily feel it has a place in a Grudge movie, but it worked.
I don't know that I'd agree that it doesn't necessarily the gore doesn't necessarily have a place in The Grudge, but...
The Grudge isn't a franchise that's ever relied on gore, that's the thing.
Oh, sure, but just because it's never done it before doesn't mean that it can't do it in the future, especially in a reboot, whatever the hell this was.
No, I know. I think my problem with it is they're like, this isn't your mother's Grudge, it's got an R rating, we're going places we've never been before, and I'm like, you had a couple gory scenes, that's it.
And that's the thing, I think they could have done more with it.
Yeah, but
Because, I think you and I both agree that, the best shot in this movie, and this isn't a spoiler because it was in the trailer, but if you want not to hear it, skip forward 7 seconds. The scene with the cutting board and the fingers.
Yeah, I don't think that's the best shot in the movie, but it's a cool visual. So, yeah, in addition to the score, I really did enjoy Lin Shaye in this movie.
Oh, she was excellent.
70-something-year-old woman, she's still acting her ass off. She's one of, the best horror actors nowadays as far as elderly people go. She's great. I love her.
Yeah, but she's the only character in this movie that is genuinely unsettling every time she's on screen.
Yes. Old people are scary.
No, I'm not gonna go that far.
They are a little bit. Yeah, I think her subplot, once again, this film, like all the other Grudge films, is divided into multiple non-linear subplots. I do think the subplot with her and her husband, she's an elderly woman suffering from, I want to say, dementia of some sort?
It seems like dementia.
And her husband's caring for her, and they're living in a cursed house. And I really do think that that was one of the best stories.
I think it was the best
The
story.
husband has this really interesting take on, like, what it is to live in a haunted house when, like, your wife is probably going to die soon, is, like, going for assisted suicide. I think that's really interesting. John Cho's story...
I just thought John Cho's story was so dragged out. I mean, again, John Cho was good in this. The acting as a whole was decent, at least.
Yeah, I would say so.
Everyone in this movie did give it their all, and there's something to be said for that. But his subplot, there's a whole pregnancy subplot that I felt was totally unnecessary, just completely dragged out the runtime, and I think there was something they were going for with it that ended up getting cut.
Maybe. One other thing I kind of enjoyed, there were a lot of little allusions to the original Grudge franchise that I thought were cute. There were nice little references here and there that I was like, oh, that's funny, I like that. The number 4 being recurring is actually a thing because in Japan, the number 4 is like a death omen.
Yeah, it's associated with death because the way that you say, or it's either the way you say or the way that you write 4 in Japanese.
Of course you would know that, you fucking weeb.
Yes.
And so to see that in this movie, I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. Like, the guy wakes up at 4:44, the address is 44, whatever that street is. That was cute. I like that.
This movie did do some subtle good things. It just also did a lot of overt bad things.
Yes, I agree. Let's talk about those bad things. What did you not like about this movie?
The pacing was just such a mess, and I know that the Grudge movies are always told in, like, a non-linear fashion, but the way that the flashbacks were done in this movie was just so jarring. Some of them were 20 minutes long, others were 30 seconds. Like, there was no rhyme or reason to it, and it just threw off the whole flow of the entire movie.
I half agree with that. I don't think that it was necessarily paced badly. I just think that the division of the subplots was jarring because, like you said, it was very sporadic. Sometimes, like, you would have an entire section of a subplot play out, like, without breaks, and then you'd cut to another subplot and get, like, a minute of it, and then it would go back to a different subplot. So it was very oddly structured.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's necessarily a pacing issue because the movie itself is just a slow burn, kind of.
Well, I almost got whiplash with some of it.
That's kind of what I'm getting at. Like, it's very, very...
All right, we're talking about the same thing.
It's semantics, yeah. I dislike the amount of jump scares in this film because it's all jump scares, and that bothered me because the Grudge franchise, yes, it had some jump scares, but a lot of the scares in the original films were very slow and very methodical and based on this creeping sense of dread. And this movie had opportunities to do that. There were 1 or 2 shots that were great. Yeah. The shot when the suicide lady and the husband are talking outside the room, and in the background you see Lin Shaye sitting on the bed with the girl, the dead girl, and then it cuts back and she's just gone and she's just holding her arm around nothing, and I was like, that's cool. I love that. Subtle things like that are great. Even the scene with the light switch toward the end when, like, the dead husband is in the kitchen, they could have done a Hereditary thing there. They could have done a scene where she turns the light off and he's just right there and there's no sound. That would have been creepy as hell. But instead, you get a boom, and it's like, it ruins it. It's just not fun, and it's annoying. Because every scene is a telegraphed jump scare, and it pissed me off.
Throughout the entirety of it, it tries to establish this kind of creepy tone, I guess. And it's always so close.
So close, but never actually hits it.
I think it hit it, like, once.
Yeah, there were a couple moments where it kind of got it, but...
Every other moment that it didn't get it, it was boring and predictable.
Yeah, I agree.
I think I said to you after we first left the theater, this is one of those movies where you could go, okay, 3, 2, 1, jump scare. 3, 2, 1, jump scare.
Yeah.
And I just totally didn't do a 3, 2, 1 with my fingers.
That's
Anytime
fine.
I did that. But regardless, it was so by the numbers where the jump scares were placed, and I hate them to begin with.
Yeah, that's very fair. I also do think that the main subplot with Detective Muldoon, Andrea Riseborough, who some of you may know from Mandy, I love her, but her subplot is the most boring one in the film. I had no attachment to her or her fucking son, whose name was Burke, which is a weird name for a child.
Every time they said his name, I kept thinking, are they saying a different name?
I thought her subplot was very boring, and it questionably had the most amount of time.
Burke Shampus.
What?
That is my son's name now. Burke Shampus. That is horrible. Thank you.
I love you.
I love you. The other thing that I really did not enjoy I wrote down my post on Reddit. Oh, so there's a scene in this movie where Detective Muldoon goes to an asylum to visit a cop who worked on this case before and is crazy now. It is so unnecessary, and it is so blatantly like, hey audience, here's how this curse works, here's what's going on. Problem is, this movie explains to you how this curse works about 6 different times in this movie, which is annoying because the movie literally, like every other Grudge movie, has an opening title card that explains how the curse works. You don't need to spell it out for the audience on multiple occasions. On top of that, that scene is really annoying because the dude literally says the phrase, "That house is grudged." And I wanted to die.
I hated that phrasing.
That was the worst line in the movie. Now I'm gonna talk about some really nitpicky things because I'm a fan of the franchise and I'm gonna get really, really fucking anal about this. 1. The reason that this movie does not work as well as the Japanese films, and this is a weird critique, American architecture does not work for a J-horror film. Flat out. This movie is trying to emulate the feelings of The Grudge, that, you know, that isolation, that claustrophobia, that dread and, like, loneliness. But the thing is, Japanese architecture is so different than American architecture and so tight and weird and very non-conventional that it makes the entire house in the original films feel very alien and very wrong. And you don't get that in this movie from the house because it's just this 2-story gothic
colonial house.
Yeah, and it doesn't have that vibe. It doesn't capture that same feeling of claustrophobia.
Well,
everything's too wide.
The way that they tried to capture it in this movie, too, is through the fact that back in the distant age of 2004 to 2006, people didn't have electricity. So they just made the house dark at all times to try to emulate that feeling of claustrophobia, and it doesn't work.
It doesn't work, and that's my problem with it, is it just, like, it loses something when you move the story to America. On top of that, the 2 main spirits in this film, Fiona and Melinda?
Something
the
like
kid?
that. Yeah, I think it's Melinda.
There's a couple issues I have with them. First being, neither of them in their appearance are anywhere nearly as iconic as Kayako and Toshio are. The 2 of them are, like, instantly recognizable from the original films. Kayako has 1 shot. She's in this movie for half a second. You have Melinda, who's a moist little girl.
God damn it.
And you have Fiona, who you never get a good enough look at to really tell. She's like, you know,
she didn't even look disfigured.
Random dead woman who gurgles like Kayako, which pissed me off to no end because there's no reason she should have been making the death rattle sound. This is a nitpick, I know, but it pissed me off a lot. Kayako's whole reason for making that sound is that she had her neck broken, and that's the sound she was making when she was struggling to breathe as she was dying. This woman, I don't know, she stabbed herself in the face, it looked like?
I thought it was the neck or
Either
something.
way, that's not the kind of thing where you'd be like, Not to mention, the daughter makes that sound, and the husband make that sound, so it really only feels like the only reason that they had that sound in the movie is because they went, oh, people associate this sound with The Grudge, let's include it. And there's no reason to include it. I am not a fan of the way this new curse works. I understand it's a different curse than Kayako and Toshio's curse, and that, like, the whole idea behind this one is this, you go into this house, you see these ghosts, they spook you a bunch and make you crazy until you murder-suicide your family. I didn't like that. It ruins the mystique of The Grudge, it ruins the unnervingness of The Grudge. The whole thing that made the original films so frightening was that you never knew how this curse was going to get you, or when it was coming, or what you were going to have happen to you. Oftentimes they would just show up and get you, and you would disappear off the face of the earth with no, like, indication of what happened to you. And what was scarier about it is that not only did you not know any of those things, it would come for you in, like, the most safe places. The original Grudge has somebody, like, literally in their bed, and then suddenly Kayako is under the covers, yanks them under, and they're both just gone. That is amazing. This movie has nothing like that. And it bothered me because it ruins the scariness of what I consider to be one of the few horror franchises to truly scare me because it's so just like you're fucked. This doesn't feel... I don't get that feeling. This didn't elicit that feeling.
No, I agree with you. It felt like every other mainstream horror movie. Like, there has to be a way to beat it. There has to be some way where it can be explained.
There's not a way to beat it, and I mean, that's what I liked about this, is ultimately the ending. Yeah, you can't beat it. Spoilers now, real quick. I hated the ending of this movie. Spoilers here, but I wouldn't recommend going to see this in theaters, so it's fine. Here's what bothered me about the ending. You have the scene where she's, torching the house.
Which was an excellent scene,
well done scene, until what it led up to. She then is prepping to light the match, and her son is suddenly in the house, and he's like, "Mommy, I'm scared, don't do this," in a fit of terrible child acting. She throws the lighter and lights the house on fire, and then it's revealed that it wasn't actually her son, it was the little ghost girl. Here's how you could have done that a million times better. It actually is her son, and she completes the curse that she had put on her when she entered the house by killing herself and her son in a fire.
I was hoping they would do that.
That would have made sense. Instead, it goes kind of a cheaper route and just ends on a jump scare. And I don't like that, because it's...
an open-ended jump scare.
It's just an open-ended jump scare, and it annoyed me because it had the opportunity. It was right there. Prime opportunity to end this in a better way, and they didn't do it. That being said, I want to stress this before I get to ratings. I do not blame Nicolas Pesce for the faults of this movie and its shortcomings. A lot of them felt like studio meddling.
No, I 100% agree with you. I mean, and again, I alluded to this earlier when I said that I felt like there was something cut from the pregnancy subplot. A lot of this movie to me felt like there were either reshoots or parts that were left on the studio cutting room floor. Like, it just felt like there was something underneath.
There was a good film trying to get out.
And it never quite reached the surface.
I think that if Nicolas Pesce got to make the film he wanted to make, I think this would have been a lot better.
I agree with you 100%.
I don't even know that there was studio meddling, honestly, but it felt like there was.
Like it.
It does. So anyway, I'm going to say that The Grudge is meh. It didn't do a lot for me. I got more than I expected, and I got some better things than I expected, but I still left disappointed, and I don't think I'd ever watch it again.
I'm going to also give it a meh. I was expecting worse.
Same.
But that being said, that it was like a 5 out of 10, bare middle of the road, just barely did it, meh.
I agree. I wholeheartedly agree.
Honestly,
I would actually say less than a 5 out of 10. It's a 4.5 out of 10 for me.
I was going to give this a soulless even until the last scene, the arson of the house.
Okay.
Because I just thought that scene was really, really well done up until the point that Lee mentioned earlier. Like, I thought that scene saved the movie.
Anyway, point is, The Grudge was mediocre. It is better than several of the January horror releases I've seen in the last few years. Better than The Bye-Bye Man, better than Insidious Chapter 4. That being said, I still didn't like it very much. I'm a little disappointed, and by that I mean I'm a lot disappointed, because it was one of my most anticipated movies of 2020. And I'm sad. Thanks so much for watching. If you like this channel and you want to see more, click the thing down there, like, comment, subscribe, click the bell if you want to know when I upload. And if you want to become a part of the Horror Pals community, there's a Patreon link down in the description, and I have a whole bunch of new reward tiers that I hope you'll all enjoy. It's really, really cool. I'm playing up the community aspect of things now and really trying to get everybody involved.
I mean, maybe watch it if it's like free on
Yeah, watch
VOD
it when it's like
or
on
something.
VOD down the road, but like don't spend theater prices for it. Yeah. Okay.